Everyone's rushing to embrace cloud computing, and with good reason. The benefits of public, private, and hybrid cloud environments are very well documented. Many companies have increased their competitiveness thanks to the lower costs and increased flexibility of the cloud. But as cloud deployments multiply, mistakes are being made. One costly blunder is to overlook physical IT infrastructure. A recent IDG research survey discovered some surprising facts about the importance of physical infrastructure to cloud deployments. Hi, I'm Stan Gibson, Senior Managing Editor for the CIO Custom Solutions Group. And joining me is Jeff Paliga. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Stan. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Jeff is Director of Global Solutions of Panduit Corporation, a world-class developer and provider of leading-edge solutions that help customers optimize the physical infrastructure through simplification, agility, and operational efficiency. Well, Jeff, IDG research has found that the cloud in the enterprise is certainly no mirage. Here are some numbers. 1/3, or 39% of respondents, are currently utilizing the cloud. 48% are evaluating, considering, or planning a cloud deployment. And meanwhile, nearly 1/4, 24%, are currently using the cloud on an enterprise basis. What do those numbers tell you?
Those numbers really provide further validation. Through the survey and through our client engagements directly, we are seeing clients move to the cloud. As we've seen in the past with previous technologies that have come out, there's a period of skepticism or reluctance until there's a business benefit, until there's a financial benefit. I think cloud is truly bringing that. Cloud is based on good virtualization principles, which most IT shops are comfortable with. But as the business benefits became apparent, what we're seeing now is it's no surprise that those numbers are leaning towards more people moving to the cloud here soon in the next 2 years, I believe. They are having an impact on our IT infrastructure. So it's really hitting home now. They really are looking at CapEx, OpEx savings, and they're really providing the business benefits across the board. So the business is really directing the IT to infrastructure to respond, and that is what we're seeing today. So that is great validation of what we're hearing as well.
Well, here's a very telling and perhaps troubling statistic. Only 15% of respondents consider themselves very successful in designing their physical infrastructure to maximize the cloud deployment. Why do you think that is?
Well, to kind of a pun, but the clouds have kind of rolled in. They're upon us today, and it's come pretty quick. And I think for those that really haven't taken the right precautions and the steps to plan and deploy the proper infrastructure, they're not realizing the full cloud benefits. I think when you look at cloud, it has a full impact across the IT stack, from top to bottom, literally. For those, the 15% that have considered that, they're seeing the benefits and yielding the benefits. What that tells us is there's a great amount of opportunity to help those that may face similar challenges or apply some best practices we've learned from our engagements to help them succeed in the future for their cloud deployments.
Well, continuing on, the survey found that companies that do not make physical infrastructure design a top priority in a cloud deployment have experienced negative outcomes. These result from reactive infrastructure changes, and they include increased costs. 55% said that. Slower implementation times, 41%. Increased power and cooling needs, 38%. So I'd like to ask you, Jeff, just why is the physical infrastructure particularly important when it comes to cloud deployments?
That's a great question, Stan. I think what happens when you deploy cloud, cloud is not a fix-all for all the infrastructure from the past. Some traditional challenges from the past may apply going forward, but cloud is not the end-all, be-all Band-Aid for all things IT, including infrastructure. So things like server density, power requirements, cooling requirements, there's inherent interdependencies now with the cloud. What used to work in the past with plenty of bandwidth and space and power, not so today. We're pushing things to the limit. As you know, server virtualization is driving up the utilization, which is good, but has an impact on the power and cooling and the physical space. So really, there's certainly a CapEx savings that people that plan well, but the big benefit is on the operational side, the OpEx savings. So no surprise that those people are finding challenges, but if they're doing things traditionally like they've done in the past, they probably won't reap the benefits going forward with the cloud configuration.
Well, Jeff, let's say I want to do things right. What is the best way to architect a data center for cloud computing?
So at the surface, obviously start early. Look at your comprehensive plan. Build some technology roadmaps. Also look at the physical space. One thing Panduit's really big on is looking at the logical and physical architectures and harmonizing that or integrating that. And this is something that really cloud is driving to the forefront because, as I said in the past, things just seem to perform. Layer 1 physical infrastructure was there, it was robust, but we're pushing applications, we're pushing bandwidth, and we're pushing cooling and power requirements. And people are keeping an eye on that. More people are keeping an eye on that than before. Used to be a siloed approach, multiple stakeholders, multiple budgets. It's shared. The interdependencies are becoming tighter and more apparent. So that's really what we see at the forefront. Is good planning architecture up front is looking at a comprehensive architecture across the board.
Was there a difference between data center architectures when it comes to the different types of cloud, public, private, and hybrid cloud?
That's a great question. On the surface, I think most people or the performance level, there are a lot of commonalities. That physical infrastructure truly is the common denominator across private, public, and a hybrid infrastructure for cloud, meaning you need ease of deployment, scalability, flexibility. It needs to be able to grow with the business and be dynamic. So on the surface, it's pretty much a common denominator. But when you start looking at things like private, public, one thing I would like to point out is private, you can get a little bit more prescriptive with the power and cooling requirements. Whereas in a public cloud, there might be a shared capacity element. On a private cloud, those types of cloud deployments, you can get prescriptive on cooling, power, space, and be able to do a little bit better, more granular capacity planning than maybe in a public deployment.
What about thinking ahead for the future? What is the best way to future-proof a cloud data center?
Well, that's a question we get a lot from clients because that's the hardest question to answer. But what we really like to engage with is looking at a roadmap, an application roadmap, a technology roadmap, a physical design roadmap that's all harmonized across the board. So obviously this requires getting started early, having a cross-functional team, and as best as possible, making provisions for future applications and future requirements. So a couple of things we like to talk to clients about. Maybe day one, your budget or your business applications don't dictate an intelligent infrastructure layer 1. But making provisions for that, thinking if it's a possibility in the future, building that type of capability in, easing the migration plan, not doing a complete rip and replace. For example, we see a lot of opportunities for cooling infrastructure, passive cooling infrastructures, whether it's hot L containment, cold L containment, that customers, if they provision up front, if they try to future-proof, maybe today the kilowatts per cabinet doesn't require that, but they know the roadmap's going to get there in 3 to 5 years, plan for that. Build the infrastructure, have the design that can bring that capacity planning on board and extend the life of that data center. So whether it's what we call a pre-configured approach, where you can bring things in holistically, or modular approach, building blocks that helps you control your predictability for performance, your footprint, your cost, and also your capacity planning, as well as I talked about intelligent infrastructure. Maybe day one might not be in the budget, but if you think going forward capacity planning is something you need, thinking through that, having those conversations, and building in some passive infrastructure that can be migrated seamlessly to an intelligent infrastructure, which we do provide, is a great way to start future-proofing data centers for cloud deployments today and beyond.
Jeff, many people might think that all infrastructure equipment is the same. What does Panduit bring to the table?
Well, Panduit's unique in the sense that we bring forward a unified physical infrastructure, a UPI methodology. What's unique about that is, as the name indicates, we look at it across the board. We're interconnecting the power, communication, control, and security elements inside of the IT infrastructure, building infrastructure, and even out on a factory floor. What's unique about Panduit is we not only stay at layer one, we look at that logical and physical integration. We work with global technology leaders around the world, and what we do is we look at next generation technologies. So we understand that the impact on the next generation technology is really what clients and customers are looking for. So Panduit's approach, not only with the widest breadth of product, service offering, and software offering, we're looking at alliance partner relationships that give us that visibility, and then we can take that information, best practices, architectures, reference designs, and apply that to our clients' environments. So when they really look at a full unified infrastructure deployment, that's what Panduit brings to the table to yield benefits for not just day one, but years and years to come.
Why is assessing the data center particularly important when it comes to optimizing a data center for a cloud deployment?
So assessing, we think, is highly imperative. That really begins early on in the planning stage. As the phrase goes, you can't prove what you can't measure. So not having visibility to your capacity, to your power requirements, your cooling limits and capabilities, going in and assessing really gives the client the ability to look at, can they reuse, can they renovate? Do they need to do a complete overhaul? Can you repurpose? As we said, there's a lot of CapEx savings that you want to recoup, but really OpEx savings is where it's at. So going and assessing where you are today can really direct you and help prioritize what your cloud deployment might look like and help you phase in that cloud infrastructure.
Jeff, is there a company that Panduit has worked with that has been particularly successful?
Yeah, so Panduit, we're a global company, and we work with many global leaders in all different types of vertical markets. One that comes to mind is EMC. We worked with EMC on their data center down in North Carolina. This was a facility they looked at. They had a 30-year plan, life cycle for the plan. It's going to be 100% virtualized in a cloud environment. And through that process, we really applied early on design principles and practices. We were able to not only give them the assessment, we were able to do some thermal assessments for them, do some what-if analysis, and ultimately deploy the product sets that go in there, as well as some software elements to give them some capacity planning. So as we looked at that project, Panduit's able to provide beyond just day one support. And that's what's key is you look at cloud, it's very hard to predict the future. They are dynamic environments. So staying with qualified partners that stay with you before the project, during the project, and after is going to increase your ability to succeed with your cloud deployments.
Thanks, Jeff. That is all the time we have in this CIO video webcast. Many thanks to Jeff Paliga, Director of Global Solutions of Panduit Corporation, for sharing his expertise on physical IT infrastructure and how the right approach can enable successful cloud computing deployments. For more information on this topic, please click on the links in the additional resources box on your screen. I'm Stan Gibson. Thanks for joining us.